Condolences continuing to pour in for the late struggle stalwart, the late Minister Pravin Gordhan, as the family announced this morning that he passed away on the Friday the 13th at the age of 75.
Indeed, and you just heard there from some of the people we've spoken to, friends and colleagues, you know, that he worked with the SARS Commissioner who worked with him, and of course also Obed Bapela, former Deputy Minister under Pravin Gordhan, and you know, just getting a sense of who the man was. But I think what they share with us is exactly what we know about Pravin Gordhan, because he did come across as that strict, no-nonsense person. You knew things were going to be prepared as they go in to do whatever he was delivering. There was always a sense that this was well thought out, well prepared. Yeah. You know, it was not something that was just off the cuff.
I must say the first introduction I had to the late minister was when he was SARS Commissioner. So I moved into financial journalism. That's how I started in this industry. And of course, he was just very, very sort of welcoming, and he never put himself above, you know. And I'm talking many, many years ago. You know, that was my first introduction to him. So, you know, it was always sort of wonderful to see him, and then moving up the ranks so much. I mean, when you look at the span of his life and the positions that he held, I mean, from being a chairperson of the Parliamentary Constitutional Committee, that was in 1996. It was in 1994 that he actually became an MP, an ANC MP, and then it just went on and on and on. And I mean, it was just a very, very much so an illustrious career, one could say. I mean, from SARS Commissioner, he was the Deputy Commissioner from 1998 to 99. He then took over in 1999, and he stayed there for 10 years as our SARS Commissioner. And
that was a very pivotal time, you know, for SARS, and very instrumental was Pravin Gordhan in bringing that institution to what it is today, you know, and it is, of course, one of those that has been viewed as a shining light for South Africa in terms of our public institutions. And so. Pravin Gordhan was truly instrumental in building it up to that status.
I think a lot of people talk into the modernization of SARS, and that he was very instrumental in doing that. But that was, I mean, that was one that he spoke of all the time.
But it went beyond the modernization.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was also in terms of getting people to understand, getting people to comply, because tax compliance at some point was
not as great
an issue. So there was a lot of work that was done with SARS as an entity.
Very much so.
And I remember those years quite vividly. You know, speaking of, I remember the one time there was one of these conferences in Sandton, and it was quite full at lunch, and there was one seat next to me and Pravin Gordhan, and these people came in and they were looking for a seat for the minister. I was like, here. And he's like, no, Sakina, I don't want to sit next to you. I don't want to be interrogated. You know, I was like, oh, Minister, I'm taken aback.
Exactly.
You know?
I promise it'll be okay.
I promise I would be quiet over lunch.
I mean, it was. I mean, there was I think all of us do have certain memories of the former minister. And I mean, I remember sitting down with him during a breakfast post the budget that he'd given. And this was in those years, you know, those years of we talk about 9 wasted years, we talk about the state capture time, but you know, we sat down and had a very cordial talk, and he was getting so intense about it that he cancelled every other arrangement that he'd had. We were only meant to have him for X amount of time. He cancelled and just carried on. And you know, I think the first thing was the pronunciation of his name. I said to him, Minister, can we just get this straight? Is it Gordhan or Gordhan? What is the proper name? Anyway, he went on to say, well, my father called us Gordhan. That's how he pronounced the name. So, yeah, it's Gordhan. Yeah. So that was how the conversation started. And then that was the most innocent part of it. And then it just went into everything he wanted to get out and speak about and speak to with the economy during those times. But, you know, there's a lot to talk about when we talk about Pravin Gordhan.
And I must say, I appreciated about him during his tenure as Minister of Finance, the fact that he was willing to talk. You would have those sit-downs with the minister who would answer questions. And I must say, you know, in subsequent years, hasn't been that easy, really.
No.
You know, there was just, at least from my perspective, during his tenure as Minister of Finance, a lot more accessibility there. But yeah, These are, we all have our individual experiences of Pravin Gordhan.
Indeed.
And
indeed.
Well, like
and
every other legacy, it evolves.
It does. And of course, we'll continue to get those messages because we're hoping to speak to Reverend Frank Chikani. We've also got Kaskovadia, who'll be talking to us. And he, of course, as you know, from the business side. And, that was very much so the focus of former Minister Gordhan, the business. That was it. From SARS to SOEs, public enterprises, the finance, that was honestly a good working relationship that you'll see that Kaskovadia can comment on there.